Hey guys, my name's Ben Howard, and today we're going to be talking about my sixth attempt at trying to shoot a 1,000 rated round with Goliath discs. If you haven't seen my previous attempts, you can go back and watch them in the playlist in the top corner. But the tournament we're going to be talking about this week is the Pipeline Spring Fling out at Pipeline Disc Golf Course in Spartanburg. If you do want to see footage of the course, you can go back and watch my practice round I made last week. If you did watch the practice round, you'll know that this is the hardest course I've played in this series so far. And it was definitely interesting going into this tournament because my mindset was going to have to be so different compared to a lot of the other courses I'd played. Because it's all of them except for Gold Grove were birdie or die courses. And this is the opposite of that, where there's so much scoring separation that anything could really happen. I really wasn't too concerned about the first round of this tournament because for this one we played two separate layouts. The first round was played from the shorter tees or the white tees, and then the second round was played from the long tees. My mindset going into it was I'm probably going to need to shoot somewhere around even par to shoot a 1,000 rated round from the long tees. So use the first round to really get warmed up, figure out the bag, figure out, make sure everything's clicking, and then take that momentum into the second round and hopefully put together a good round. So getting into the first round, I'm not really going to talk about this one in depth like I do normally, just because, like I said, I'm really not paying attention to it too much. And a good chunk of the holes, I really just wasn't confident because I hadn't practiced those holes in 8 months. But yeah, we started on hole 7, started out bogey bogey, which both of those were somewhat unfortunate. Both those holes have rollaway potential near the green, and I threw okay tee shots, but on my approach shots into those greens, they got up and rolled, and I wasn't able to make the comeback putt. But then a par 9, par 10, birdied 11. And up to 11, I was feeling really good because I was hitting my lines off the tee and like I was hitting the gaps, like the initial gaps, where if you did watch my practice round, you'll know that the main thing I was really talking about was just hitting that first initial gap off the tee. And that's going to give myself chances to either score or just have easier approaches up and down for par, because the only reason up to that point that I had taken bogeys was just because of putting. But then par 11, 13 sucked. That was just a really stupid mistake. That's the hole with all the OB on the left side. A little bit of a spoiler for the second round. That's the only double bogey I took in this entire tournament. And it's just because I was pinched on the left side up against the OB. I tried to throw a forehand roller, and it came out of my hand on like this angle. So it just cut straight back into the OB. Luckily, I had like an easy up and down, but it was so frustrating for that to be the only bogey I took, or double bogey I took for the entire tournament. 14 was another really important hole because I hit not first available, but like second available, I guess you could say. Kicked right and had a really touchy approach shot into that green. Had to hit a fairly tight gap, but I also had to have really good speed control or else I risked just throwing it 50, 60 feet past the basket. And then I parred a bunch. I got to 17, where the only reason I bogeyed that hole was because I missed like a 20 to 25 footer. Up to that point in the round, and something I did really well during this entire tournament really was I wasn't giving myself many putts outside of like 20 to 25 feet. I kept putting myself in that same spot, and that's when I played my best. I'm putting myself to the same spot every time, and I have that putt dialed. Because when I'm able to play rounds like that, it's just robotic after a certain point. But I let the nerves get to me that like I had just been on that kind of par train and was throwing good shots, just not quite good enough to get birdies. But then 18, I parked 18, which felt so good. That hole is so hard with it, how downhill it is, in like having to hit that initial gap. So felt great to park that one. But yeah, then we got back to hole 1, bogeyed that one just because of another missed like 20-foot putt. But yeah, after that, par, birdie, par to finish out. So not exactly the round I was looking for, but like I said, I wasn't going to that round really confident, especially on a few tee shots that I hadn't practiced. And I was mainly just really trying to figure out what I needed to do on a few holes. But for example, what was it? Hole 11, I wanted to throw my yellow NT arc, but I kept flipping it too much. So I took the yellow NT arc I had out and put this new one in between rounds, and that helped a lot. Aside from that, the only thing I did change is I put in this other white Oasis Covenant. I don't know why, but this one is a lot grippier than that red one I've been bagging. Not only that, but that other one's getting really warped, and this one is a little bit fresher. So there is some other stuff I do want to talk about for this round, but I'm going to save that for the very end because most of that's just kind of stuff that was overarching throughout the entire tournament. But getting into round 2, start on the same hole, hole 7. Start out the same way with the bogey. That time I put myself to like 70 feet out, but I was up the hill from the basket, and I tried to throw like a little floaty backhand touch shot. I early released it, didn't throw it on any anhyzer, and it went like 40 feet past the basket. Missed that. But I was able to make the correction on hole 8. Getting the par on hole 9 felt amazing, especially considering off the tee I tried going for my flippy slingshot, trying to hyzer flip it to get it turn over through that gap. Early released it, threw it into the woods on the left, but I had great footing and had a wide open gap. So I was able to throw a pretty touchy flex backhand all the way down to like maybe 100-foot approach shot. Got up and down. And once again, if you watch my practice round, you'll know holes 9, 17, and 18 were like the main holes that I was really worried about. Half my over par strokes came from hole 9. So to be able to wash that away really took a lot of pressure off me. Hole 10, I threw one of the best scramble shots I've thrown in a long time. Really loving this Oasis Waymaker for my forehand approach shots. But I threw my tee shot early left, and I had to throw this thing on like a 45-degree anhyzer high and let it just get up there and coast back to the left and kind of flatten out at the end. And it did it perfectly. Put me like 10 feet, had a stress-free par after throwing a really bad tee shot. Hole 11, I got insanely lucky off the tee. I threw the same shot I threw the first round, but just pulled it a little bit, but missed all the trees on the right side of the fairway and got almost pin high. But I threw a really good forehand approach into the green, got up and down for birdie, which was really nice because up to that point, yeah, they put me back to even par. Sadly, hole 12, I gave it right back to the course. I'd been throwing my forehands really good, and that's something I'm going to talk about later especially, but I rolled my wrist so hard on this tee shot, and I was going with my less stable Rapture, so it just turned over, burned on the left, but put my approach shot to like 30 feet, missed the putt. Hole 13, I was able to make the correction and not throw it out of bounds. Hole 14 was kind of the opposite of hole 12, where I overcorrected. Instead of trying to roll my wrist, I like early released the crap out of it. I was able to throw a really good shot and got myself into like, yeah, I think it was in circle 1, but missed that putt. Hole 15, got the birdie on that one, which it always feels amazing because you always have to get a little lucky on that one to get all the way down there to the green. But I put that thing to 20 feet, which felt so good, especially considering that put me back to 1 over. Hole 16, I threw an okay drive. I just threw it a little too low, didn't get it over the top of the hill. It's actually funny. I tombstoned right into the side of the hill, so I had a really awkward approach shot. But I mean, I think I was less than 100 feet, and it's just a simple forehand into the green. Like you can almost throw it blindfolded and get into the circle. But got the par there. Got the par on 17, which I had a putt for birdie on that one. I threw one of the best tee shots I've ever thrown on that hole. Got out into the second fairway, but for my approach shot into the green, I had a really stiff headwind. And if you've seen that hole, you'll know it's super far uphill. Having to throw a backhand, having to throw something overstable so it wouldn't get bodied by the wind. And I ended up just kind of throwing a flex shot that just ended up going straight, but was pin high, probably about 35 to 40 feet. Missed it, but was able to get the par on that hole, which always feels amazing. 18 was annoying because I played that one okay. I played it basically the same way I did during the practice round. Threw an okay drive off the tee. Kind of a bad second shot. Had to scramble for my third shot. Scrambled up to the green with my fourth, and then missed my putt for 5. And on that putt, I just put a ton of pressure on myself. Yeah, I was putting slightly uphill, and so I told myself I needed to put it higher to make sure I got it there and then hit the band. So just stupid mental mistakes. And that's pretty much the theme for the rest of the round. But just letting those negative thoughts seep into my head and just cloud my brain really just got to me. Hole 1, I threw probably the worst tee shot I've thrown in the entire tournament. Hit first available, kicked right, and then kicked back left into the middle of the fairway, which was really nice. But it's a spot I've never been on that hole where I'm like 50 feet off the tee, maybe. Threw a pretty good shot from there, threw a flippy mid-range, just trying to get it out there and finish to the right. Kind of just pushed straight, so I ended up on the left side of the fairway still. Tried to go for the green, hit a limb high, fell down, threw my approach shot up in the green, got up and down from that. Hole 2 was probably the worst break I got because I threw a horrible shot off the tee, pulled it right, threw it into all the rough on the right, but it kicked me out into the middle of the fairway, so I had like 100 foot, maybe 150 foot up and down for par, and I threw it just a little too low. It hit the ground and kind of did like an anti-skip, and then hit another tree, and then landed on a roller angle and rolled probably 80 to 100 feet down the hill. Hole 3, I threw an okay drive on that one. I got the height just right to where I was able to get a stable disc to turn a little bit, but the headwind that we were playing into on 17 was like a right to left on that hole. So as soon as it got over on any anhyzer, it just dropped. I think I was still able to get to like 40, 50 feet, missed that putt. For hole 4, I went with the same play, tried to throw the slingshot again. That time I threw it okay, I just threw it too high, and so it kind of got up there and stalled and faded out really far to the left. I got myself to like a 35 footer for my par, missed that. Hole 5, I went for the Goliath Covenant play. And at that point, I'd run into something that I rarely ever run into, where my hands were too sweaty and I was starting to lose grip. So I threw the Covenant and it slipped out of my hand, but it got through a gap on the left side and put me to like 20 feet. So I felt good going into 6. And then on hole 6, I hit the tree that pretty much makes up the gap, where you've got to go the left to right side of it. Squared that one, kicked me really far to the left, but there's no trees out there anymore, so it's not that hard of an approach shot. But that was the one forehand approach shot that I think I really messed up really bad. Put it to like 40 feet, missed the putt, but was still able to beat my personal best out there, so I got something out of it. But looking back at the rounds, the main thing that really improved, or that I really noticed was really improved, was my forehand approach game. Like I said, I don't think I messed up more than like 2 or 3. So I had a ton of confidence in my forehand this weekend. The main thing you could probably guess that I didn't have a ton of confidence in was my putting. And I think that's mainly just because, like I said, I wasn't having to really test that part of my game. I was just putting myself to 20 feet a lot of times, whether it's my approach shots for par, bogey, or birdie. I just have to not be in my own way. Yeah, guys, I definitely do want to look into more tournaments that are going to be played at harder courses like this, because I really do think with a slightly better game plan and just a confident putt, or a little bit of confidence going into those last few holes, even par or better was definitely possible during this round. I think it was -3 to get 1,000, which would have been really tough, but was possible for sure. Whereas with a lot of these other birdie or die courses, it just doesn't feel like it's that close to me as it did during this round. But ultimately, I think my game plan is really just to sign up for as many tournaments as I can and just give myself as many chances as I can. But something I'm going to take into consideration in the future is, if I can't decide between 2 tournaments, I'm going to go for the one that's at a harder course. But I also need to actually be able to practice that course, or have practiced the course recently. I'm not signed up for any tournaments at the moment, but if y'all have any ideas for me, please let me know down in the comments. But thank y'all so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and y'all have a good one.